If you love the underhook position, but you struggle to get there, this video is for you. We're gonna be going over 3 things. Number 1, I'm gonna be showing you the 6 key fundamentals of hand fighting that will take you from an average wrestler to an elite wrestler. Number 2, I'm gonna be showing you the perfect underhook positioning that will allow you to score on any opponent. And number 3, I'm gonna be showing you the 10 hand fighting techniques that will get you to your underhook every single time. Starting out with the 6 keys to hand fighting that separate the average from the elite wrestler. Number 1, make contact the right way. One of the biggest problems is losing the hand fight right in the first couple seconds of the match or of your tie-up. I have a couple different options. I can either make contact by grabbing the wrist first, by thumb blocking with my backhand, or just in general making contact with my backhand while I guard my lead leg with my forward hand. Another option I can do is touch foreheads first, so if I get close enough where my head is touching him, I'm okay with going to a collar tie with my lead hand. But notice how my elbow is down, and a lot of times I'm not swinging very wide. If I'm gonna ever make contact with my backhand, which normally I don't, but say my head's touching here, I'm going to go very, very in with my elbow, very narrow, not around, because I really wanna protect my lead leg. And even if I am gonna go with my lead hand, I'll at least keep my other hand down, right here. If you go wide, in general, if you go wide, they'll beat you with an underhook to the inside. So when I go, not underhook, beat me with your own collar tie. Boom. This happens a lot. So if I was ever to come, I'm coming in, almost in through the body and up to my collar tie. Any other points you want to make on how important it is to make contact?
Yeah, the rep starts before you tie up. So the rep doesn't start grabbing your opponent like that. The rep is going to start from distance. Whether you shake hands at the beginning of the match or while you're drilling, I close the distance and make contact. I almost always reach with my backhand first and go thumb block. I'll either go thumb block or I'll go club with my left hand, but I'm gonna close the gap, post, and then I'm free to tie up as I please after that. But the rep starts from distance, close the gap, and then tie up. Don't get lazy and get in the habit of this. Both wrestlers just kind of reaching up like that. If you do that in practice, it's gonna come time for a match when you get tired, you're gonna reach, guy's gonna get deep into a shot pretty quickly.
All right, now number 2, the second key to hand fighting is know where you wanna be. And today we're talking about the underhooks, so that's where we wanna be. So if I know I like the underhook positioning, which is what we're gonna talk about today, I need to know that's where I'm going to. There is a purpose behind my hand fighting. Hand fighting is not random. It's not just, slapping each other's hands like this. I am getting to my underhook. I'm making contact the right way, and I'm hand fighting using the techniques we'll talk about in the end of the video to get to that underhook position. Okay? So that's key number 1 and number 2. Key concept number 3, go to your tie-up and keep your tie-up. If you like the underhook position, you've got to know how to control this position and keep it. And don't let it go once you have it. Meaning, a lot of times we'll do live hand fighting goes, and the person gets to their underhook or gets to their control tie, and then purposely, just because they're hand fighting, let goes and keeps the hand fighting going. No, the purpose of the hand fight is to get to that position that you like and keep it. All right, there's other ways that you'll have to use to keep this underhook position. Grabbing the shoulder, pulling yourself in tight. The underhook is, we'll talk more in detail about the positioning of it, but a lot of times it's this elbow positioning, so he's cranking down, I'm cranking up, I'm bringing my hips in, he's pushing my hips away. So there's this kind of balance of trying to keep that positioning once I get it, because they're not just gonna stand there and allow you to hang out in that position. Like they may even try to, they'll try to crank down normally, that's one, so you'll have to push your elbow up and push your hips in, or they'll even try to bring their arm up to slide out, and even just gripping it and just trying to get back underneath that underhook as they try to slip free. Any points on that about keeping that tie-up once you get to it?
Yeah, I mean, again, like what Ebbett said is, you'll see wrestlers get to a control tie, underhook being the one we're going over today, getting the advantage and then easily letting the guy fight out of it. My goal is to gain the advantage, and I need to know where I'm going to next, so what sort of attack am I doing? So once I get here, I need to keep this position and look to gain the next position. So once you gain advantage, do not let your opponent easily get out of it.
Yeah. Number 4, key point number 4. Again, we got 6 key points. Number 4 is know what your opponent can do from your favorite tie-up. What can people do from the underhook? And I'm gonna show you a little clip here of somebody attempting a fireman's, because that's probably the number one thing people are gonna go to. So when Steven gets an underhook on me, very common defense or counter people are gonna try to do is they're gonna go from an overhook to grabbing your tricep, and they're gonna go into a fireman's carry. As this is happening, so if I have an underhook on my opponent, as they're going in, I need to circle into them as best as possible, and a lot of times my right hand will try to block that arm and down block in this position. If they get in, I'll take my hand that would have down blocked the arm and it would down block the leg, and again, I'll circle in front as best as possible. Any thoughts on the fireman specifically?
Yeah, one other thing I'll do sometimes if I really get caught, so if the guy gets deep in, sometimes I can pull this arm up and walk back, and then I'll work into my sprawl. You know, maybe you catch a guy fully, like I hadn't hit a fireman's. You know, maybe you catch the guy fully to his back. I don't think that's super common, but if I get caught fully off guard, go ahead. I get caught, I'm gonna lift this arm, and I'm gonna either work my hand free or post on that leg to come back out in front. So go one more. This one I'll work the hand free. So I'll hit with the hips, pull my arm free. Now he's in a high crotch, and it's much easier to defend.
The second thing that I see often happen, there are some other options, like, you know, I've seen people loosen it up really hard and then whip free. Some Russian guys do that. But I would say another thing to be very careful of is an inside trip. As your opponent goes underhook, and especially if you start, or as I go underhook and I start crowding in, I'm very susceptible to a inside trip. So what I recommend in general, and we'll talk about that in a second, this is the next category we're gonna go to, is the proper positioning of the underhook. I like to go pocket to pocket and even in front. If I'm in front, he no longer can do the fireman's or the inside trip. He may be able to throw me backwards, but if I lean slightly forwards, then almost all the counters are taken care of. So that's key concept number 4. Know what your opponent can do. Any other things on that concept?
Yeah, with that, you know, you even want to know some of the sneakier stuff that they can do. And again, these are not as common, but go ahead and jack that underhook up. Some guys will step, you know, and trip here. I've been caught with this, where guys they'll flash the hip in front. So like they'll flash the hip in front. When you bring your hip in front of mine, they'll cut back and catch you there. Typically for me, when I get to an underhook, you can kind of get a feel for how good this guy is in the overhook position. If I get a really good underhook and this guy seems really confident, he's maybe stepping into me, this is a time that I will fight out of this, and then I may or may not go back to it. So if I step in here and all of a sudden I'm like, man, this guy feels like he knows what he's doing here, I don't really feel comfortable, I'll fight out of that. Doesn't mean I won't go back in, but when I go back in the second time, I'm gonna be much more aware of what he can do, and I'm gonna really fight my position much harder.
Yeah, and there's a whole video on overhooks that I have. I think it's for free on YouTube, so if you look up Iron Faith overhooks, it's great to know that if you like underhooks. There's all those weird little details that people are gonna go to, and better be prepared for it instead of letting it happen to you in the state finals. Say you get, you know, overhook lat dropped backwards and you weren't prepared for it, okay? So that's key concept number 4. Moving on. Key concept number 5 of hand fighting, setup. The hand fighting to the tie-up is not the setup of the shot. That is just getting to your control position. Once you get to your control tie-up, in order to go on to the shots, which we're not gonna talk too much in detail about the attacks today because we have several videos on underhooks and underhook attacks, but I need to set my shot up by push, pulls, and fakes. Those are the 3 things we use. I'll go over quickly what I mean by that. This is how I set my shot up. I have the underhook. I push into him, he pushes back, now I can attack. Or option number 2, pull. I get the underhook. I pull, he tries to stand up, I attack. Or option number 3, I use a fake to pretty much off balance him to do another attack. Use a fake or misdirection. That's just a general understanding. It's not too much of the hand fighting techniques that we'll talk about later, but understand that once you get to the tie up, you may need to move the guy around. Just move him, push, pull, fakes before you hit that attack. Sometimes you can attack immediately. I do think like a throw by a lot of times, like I used to go club, underhook, and just go. But a lot of times, especially if you've settled into your tie up, you need to move the guy.
A couple things I do with that once I get to my underhook. Even if he's got head position, I'll go between attacking right leg, well, his left, his right, or the head. So once I get in, my fakes are either fake my single, fake my knee pick, or fake my snap down. And when I fake, it's not, you know, if I go to fake and he doesn't react, like if I start going like this to the knee pick and he doesn't react, I'm gonna go knee pick. So it's less about like just being in here with his hand and just like slapping his legs and his head. It's more making a partial attempt, almost like feeling out if that shot is there. So in this case, like that knee pick is there, I'm gonna start going knee pick, he reacts, I pull his head down, he comes up, I go single. So being able to use them together and knowing at which time you should fake which. If his right leg is way forward, put your right leg way forward, left leg way back. I'm probably not gonna fake a single as often here because I really don't have the angle to do it. I'm gonna fake my knee pick, maybe I do go single after that. So your fakes aren't just lazily slapping at the legs and the head, but they're more attempts at feeling what attacks are actually there.
Now, key concept number 6, keeping your attack hand free, especially with the underhook. Now, you do have a couple options, so say if he gets my wrist, you have ducks pretty much is the one that I've seen people do. If they have a wrist, they can duck to the opposite side, because a lot of times that duck motion will make your opponent let go because they'll try to come back to stuff your head. Other than that, though, you need to get your attack hand free. Like, if I get an underhook and he has my wrist, okay, now I can't do a single, now I can't do a knee pick, now I can't do a snap down. And there's, again, a duck under, there's maybe a couple other options. Maybe I can fake and then try the weird swing thing, but even that, it's like, you need to keep your attack hand free. So, in general, after I go for my underhook, my hand will either drop to the wrist or come back to my hip. I will not dangle it here. So if I go club underhook, the hand goes to the wrist, or keep it on your side. Just keep that attack hand free so that you can attack once you get to your position, all right? Now, got a bonus one for you, number 7, all right? So I'm glad you stayed to the end of this section of the video. Number 7, attack quickly and often. You wanna speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we know where we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to our underhook. We have to know now, what are we getting to next? What attacks do we have from here? And not hesitating to pull the trigger on them. So when I'm going underhook, I typically go single first, almost no matter what, unless there's really an opening for something else. So as I'm getting my underhook, my body's going into position to take my first shot. So if I go club underhook, my club underhook should look like this. Club, underhook, watch as my hip circles pocket to pocket, and I'm already reaching for that single. So even if it's not there, I'm getting him to react and bite on my attempts so I can put the second and third one together. So I'll club, underhook, fake the single. Or in this case, I might go right to it. I might post, club, single right away. Now, if he reacts, like typically against a good wrestler, that first attempt may not be enough to actually score. I might have to put a couple in a row. So post, single, front headlock, knee pick. So I'm putting a few in a row as opposed to getting that underhook and just sitting and waiting. If I sit and wait here, typically he's gonna slowly get out and I lose my advantage. So once I get to this underhook position, I need to know where am I going to next, and I start moving towards it right away. Single, knee pick, front headlock. Not that those are the only 3 options, but I have an attack to each leg, an attack to the head, and I'm using them together to set up the one that I like the most, or whichever one's there on my opponent.
Now moving on to the 5 key details of the underhook position.
That's 6.
That's not right. So the 5 key details of the underhook position that will allow you to even get to your attacks in the first place. So we're gonna go more into that detail of where I wanna be. It's not just the underhook. That's not good enough. You need to know exactly the positioning you wanna be in the underhook to be able to score. Number one, keep your elbow high. Now these are all more general positioning, and we're also talking about the specific positionings that me and Steven like to get to. Trent Hiley loves to get to an over-under position here. You know, he likes to wrestle from this type of underhook where he drops in and then hits a double. You can have your preferences. Both Steven and myself like this specific positioning. So once I get to my underhook, I wanna keep my elbow high. It's super basic. He wants to crank down to not allow me to attack the legs. I wanna have my elbow high to open up the space here and look for my attacks. So that's number one, super simple. Keep your elbow high. Now another thing I'm kind of looking to do, which is number two, is go pocket to pocket and get my side to my tricep. The more extended I am here, the more he can crank down. So when I bring my pocket to his pocket, my elbow goes high, I also bring my lat to my side. It doesn't have to necessarily be touching, but the closer it is, the harder it is for him to even get space to crank down. Because most of the time I'm looking for a throw by single actually, or the knee pick technique. So getting to this pocket to pocket positioning, or even in front like we kind of talked about, and then getting my lat to my tricep is something I really try to do. Any thoughts on those first two, elbow high, pocket to pocket?
Yeah, I like to go, so I do underhooks to both sides. If you're first learning this series that we're covering now, I would recommend doing it to your lead leg side. So if you're right-handed, go to the right side, because once you get here, your attacks are gonna feel more comfortable and your positioning is more comfortable. So if I'm right-handed and I have my right leg forward, going pocket to pocket with my right leg forward is gonna feel much more comfortable than going lefty underhook and having to switch your lead legs. As you advance, you might find that you like to do it on both sides, perfectly fine. But to grasp these concepts initially, they'll come faster to you if you do this right leg. If you're righty and you go righty lead leg. And then my goal here is similar to like when I'm stopping this overhook. It's the same position as when I'm stopping like a whizzer or a shin whizzer. So if I'm attacking his leg, I'm stopping this with my upper lat. So when I'm here, my ribs come up in front of the hand and I'm literally trying to get my pocket all the way in it. And I'm standing straight up. Not to say this is the only way to do it, but I'm literally standing straight up and my elbow's in good position because his main defense is catching this overhook, starting to square up, and I lose a lot of my power here. So pocket to pocket, I'm tight with my lat. My elbow stays up and out, and this is also gonna help with injury prevention. If you ever wrestle somebody who likes to crank on those elbows, if you get lazy here and they rip that, you know, you could cause a tear in your elbow. So getting to that underhook, walking my body in immediately, I almost do like a skip step. So I'm like step 1, 2, and then I'm gluing my ribs in. At this point, I'm probably gonna go for an attack, but I'm holding pocket to pocket positioning. Ribs are tight to my elbow, and my elbow is not up high as in high to the ceiling, but fighting against the pressure he's trying. So he's pressuring down, I'm resisting against that pressure.
All right, now moving on to key detail number 3, feet positioning. The biggest thing that I'm doing in general is I'm going to match my lead leg to the same side as the underhook. Again, this is a preference that I like to do because I'm going to this pocket to pocket position. If I love, underhook high crotches, which are great, I'll probably not do that, right? I'll keep my right leg forward. But for example, if I'm going to an underhook with my left side, I will go underhook and I will step my left leg forward because I'm going for a single attack here. I think high crotches do work well, but the problem with the high crotch and the underhook positioning is you lose the underhook itself. So as you go back to here, they can crank down more and very tough to get that space in there. It's not impossible. I've seen people hit moves from these type of positions. There's a lot of variety. I put it all inside my underhook video, but for the sake of where I like to be in this throw by position, I switch lead legs and keep my left leg forward. So as far as feet positioning go, and I'm also trying to get to the side of them, actually. They will square up with you, so you'll end up like at some type of angle here, but I'm not facing them with my feet. I'm not just lead leg here. I'm twisted and turned to that pocket-to-pocket position. Next thing I wanna go over, so that was number 3. Number 4, hand positioning. I'm normally gonna go palm straight on the back, and the reason why I do that is because it allows me to kind of have leverage on lifting my elbow up. If I tuck in too much, it drops my elbow down. It tends to drop my elbow down, but when I slide back, it allows me to bring my elbow up. But I'll change different grips. Like especially as they're trying to get away, I might, hug that shoulder and pinch it so the bicep and the hand kind of block the shoulder in place. Any other thoughts on hand positioning?
Yeah.
Or even the feet, if you had anything
With hand position, think palm to the center of his spine and up high. So I'm trying to go between his shoulder blades, palm to it to connect here. Again, you can switch to different things. I typically find that when I slide to that shoulder, they can regain their position. And again, there's different styles, but for what we like to do, palm to the center of the back, and that will give you a lot more power in being able to resist against his pressure down.
I think it also makes sense for the type of throw bys we go to.
Yeah.
Because when we're throwing by, we're kind of we're looking for that elbow high positioning. And again, I think the biggest negative to grabbing the shoulder, you do have control. You have more control. You have more control as far as moving the guy, but they can crank definitely much harder.
Yeah, and they'll get like, what you'll see is when guys go single, they'll catch that overhook or that whizzer. So go get all the way in. So they'll go here, and now I'm still in decent defensive position. So when you go hand to the spine and you lift, you actually can clear that arm fully off. So when I go pocket to pocket and throw by single, I'm clearing that and getting into position. And again, the same type of positioning here with my lat being the thing that blocks him from going whizzer.
Yeah. Last key detail before we move on to those 10 amazing hand fighting techniques is get your shoulder to their ear. I actually heard this detail from Chance Marsteller, and I wanted to include it because it's something I did naturally, but I think it's something that a lot of people won't do if they're not have heard it before. So all I mean is, it's similar to everything else, like the pocket to pocket, the feet positioning. If I go underhook here, like I'll show you what it would look like. So I'm underhook, I've went lead leg forward, I went pocket to pocket, and then the last thing we haven't said that actually does everything is when I slide my shoulder into the ear, it fixes that upper body portion. And a lot of times when I'm digging these underhooks later on, you'll see, I'm throwing my shoulder like into his ear, pretty much. I'm dipping my shoulder down and getting my whole entire like underhook in. I'm not like going like short here. I'm pushing my shoulder into the ear to be able to really get a good underhook position. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. These are the 10 hand fighting techniques that you're gonna be able to use to get to the underhook every single time, and I'm gonna add in 3 additional bonus ones, or maybe even 4 at the end, so stay till the end, okay? If you even pick a couple of these, you'll be good to go. So let's start out. Number 1, club underhook.
Here's 2 examples of Aaron Brooks hitting it on Trent Hidley.
So, with the club underhook, it's great for when you're making contact. So, if I'm wrestling, this is what I normally use in that initial contact tie up. I'll go post, I'll go club, and I'll punch an underhook. Or I'll go straight club with the left and punch the opposite underhook. The idea is you're pulling their head into you, so your opponent will then try to grab and brace his hands on your shoulder. Even if just a little bit of space opens up, so say he has his elbows to his side, I go club, even if a little bit of space, boom, opens up, I can jack that underhook in. So you are really pulling him into you and punching an uppercut into that armpit. So I'm in a good stance, club, I'm pulling him into me with that left hand, as I punch in and get my underhook positioning. Here's something that's very important that I just didn't really notice until I started coaching. Coaches always talk about get head position. Even very high level coaches, even Division I, I've had so many great coaches tell me that. For the underhook, it actually does not matter that much. Even the Russian tie in a lot of scenarios. What I mean is this. When you go club underhook, you will never have head position because you're pulling them down and you're gonna end up here. And you have to almost stand up to jack the underhook in. Now, yes, if you're going high crotch, you probably need to shift to here to hit your high crotch. But a lot of times with this position, your head's gonna be above his. It has to be that way. Because you're clubbing and you're pulling his head down while you're punching up. You can't get a deep enough underhook by staying down here. You have to come up, step that lead leg forward, and dig into that underhook position.
Yeah, with this, a couple things. Both of us do underhooks to both sides, and so it does give us a lot more options in terms of going club underhook. For example, if I'm going underhook to the right side, when I club with my left hand, I put a little bit of weight over that back leg. So I'm gonna club and I'm gonna kind of push him over that back leg. As I feel him try to correct his position, that's when I pull, swinging to that underhook, running my hip in, and I'm usually going single right away. Now, if I'm going underhook to the left side, I'm gonna post first. So I'm still gonna reach with the same hand. I post, and then I'm gonna club with my right hand, and I like to shift a little bit over that lead leg, almost like in a circle. Club, pull, and connect the left pocket. Again, going for a single. So if you can do this to both sides, it makes you much more threatening, because if he goes, go ahead and post. If he posts here, I don't know if he's gonna go post, club, underhook this side, or if he's gonna go post, club, underhook this side. And so it puts him in a position where if I make a mistake on either side, he can get to one of the underhooks. And so I'm reaching post, I can go post club, I can go post club, or I can go regular club. And I can force an underhook to either side, because I found that when I'm wrestling, I might be looking for the underhook, for 30, I'm looking for the underhook this side and it's just not there. If you can develop it to both sides, he'll be very dangerous with your underhooks.
Yeah, and going off that, if you go watch my match versus Chance Marsteller, he shut me down because he was a lefty lead. So he was a lefty lead and he had this shoulder back. And I loved my underhook that side. So I just kept going here, but that's about all I got. And I just kept going here and getting shut down. So I think if I was, now I'm even a better wrestler than I was when I competed, but that is something that you can sometimes get caught in your head. If you only have one tie-up or one position and somebody shuts that down, if you don't have something else to go to, you are not as difficult to wrestle, all right? Number 2 hand fighting technique is dipping your shoulder. So it's very similar to the club punch, but I'm literally just going to do the punch almost, okay? So we're gonna show some reps and then we'll go down to the details here.
Here's a few examples of Yazdani and Aaron Brooks hitting this technique. This is in the NCAA finals this past year.
And we're gonna be going into number 3 soon, which has very similar kind of techniques to what we're talking about right now. It's gonna be more of a windmill type motion. But this is where this is probably the most common way I see an underhook happen. You're already in a tie-up. So you're already tied up with the person, normally with some sort of inside collar type positioning, and you're just digging an underhook. So you can't normally punch necessarily because you're not in the open. So even if I could club and try to punch, but I don't have that same force from the open. Because when I'm from the open, I'm clubbing and pulling them into me, and it's giving me a better opportunity to hit that underhook. But here, we're already in our tie-up. All I'm doing is I'm dipping. I'm just taking whatever underhook I want. I'm dropping that hand, and I'm just punching into that underhook position. As I do it, I might step my lead leg forward. I'll raise my head up and I'll try to get my shoulder to that ear as well. I can even do it from the head on the outside, doesn't really matter. Like if I was on this side, I could do the same thing, I drop. I'm just looking to punch and get as deep as I can in this position here. getting that as big of a hook as possible. I'm gonna be putting in some videos. Well, obviously you probably just saw the video I put in for the last one, but there'll be some YouTube videos of high-level wrestlers hitting this so you guys can see how it looks like in real time. Some other things that you'll notice that people try to do is they'll try to almost raise an elbow first. So they're in their hand fighting. They might pull an elbow up as they try to dip in. You're just punching it, but look at what I'm doing with my shoulder. The toughest thing is you're dipping this shoulder. That's why I named it kind of dipping your shoulder, because the shoulder needs to drop underneath, needs to roll underneath the forearm in order to get that underhook position. I can't get it, the underhook, unless the shoulder dips and goes to that ear so I can get my underhook position. Any thoughts with that?
Yeah, so again, these can happen from any sort of tie-up, but one thing is that, like, again, if you can do this to both sides, you can use them together. So I might have this collar tie, inside tie, and I start dipping for an underhook here, but he fights it, clamp down, go underhook opposite side. So, you know, when you first start out, it might help to learn to one side, but underhooks are not super complicated, especially if we're already tied up. You're just grind it out, like just dig for it. And if he fights it hard, like, go ahead and fight it hard. He fights it hard, dig the other side. And just continue in this particular move, you just continue working for it. You may not get it on the first go, but 4, 5, 6 attempts, you might get it on one of them, or as you're doing this, you might start pressuring the guy towards the out of bounds. Maybe the ref is looking to stall, hit him for a stall call. I'm not hanging here. If you like the underhooks, immediately go to it. He fights out of it, immediately go to the other side. He squares up, fights out, blocks the head, boom, back this side. You know, gaining the wrist control.
Yeah. Now we're gonna move on to number 3. We'll show some reps with this. It's very similar. We're gonna call it the windmill. But dipping the shoulder, like we said, you're just punching your underhook. But you don't have to club first. You're already in the tie-up, you just punch it in. Like you're literally uppercutting someone in the jaw, all right? This one is a little bit more of a finesse than muscling through. But we'll hit some reps and then we'll go into some details, all right? You guys come to collar tie, yeah. All right.
Here's a few time in matches using this windmill technique to get to my underhook position.
So, what you noticed in the beginning, even when I was, I don't know if the mic picked that up, but I like hitting it from the overtie, from an overtie position. Like when I go underhook, I want my opponent to be in a collar tie, especially if I have my own collar tie for this technique. Reason being, if he has my elbow, if I drop, he just has control of it, and it might be hard to get the underhook in. If he has an inside tie, you know, it's just tough to do it without an overtie position. So, if I'm wrestling here, and I wanted to hit this technique, watch what I did. I went here, I grabbed the elbow, pulled up to the collar tie, went to my own collar tie. He's in the overtie position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push his head to the side. Actually, we'll move this, will probably be easier for them to see. I'm gonna push his head to the side and crowd my shoulder in. Look at how this shoulder and the arm or shoulder and my wrist are almost touching. They're close together here. So I'm pushing the head and moving my body into this position. Be careful of, I guess, some slide bys and go behind stuff, but right as I do that, I'm dipping to here. So I'm making this windmill motion where I'm throwing the head and it's slipping off and it's draping to here. Okay, any thoughts with that? I mean, I know it's one of your favorite ones.
I do this one probably the most, and I combine it with my high crotch and my snap down. So I typically will post left hand, club right, and I'm gonna circle away like from my high crotch. So I'll post, I'll club right hand, and I'll circle my feet away, keeping my lead leg forward, circling, getting a hold of this armpit. Now, a lot of times when I get to this, if I can push off and pull the trigger on my high crotch, I will. But if he starts to like grab my elbow, go ahead and grab my elbow. He starts to grab my elbow here. Usually their next move is to try and fight inside. So he's trying to fight that hand in. So I dip and block. So as he fights in, I dip my elbow to block. And then when he concedes on this and starts to go outside to gain a second position, that's when I go underhook. And I get this all the time, even from just like collar tie here. I get it from even here, like armpit and head here. I get a good snap to here. I feed that elbow, dip in my shoulder, and I swing in to my underhook. But it's really about dipping the elbow and blocking. Whether he fights inside or not, it's my elbow position. And even if I don't like, let's say I don't like underhooks, I can use this for other attacks as well. Go to fight inside. He goes to fight inside. I block with my elbow. When he goes to fight back out, that's when I pull the trigger on a shot. So he fights in. I dip my elbow. I'm walking my legs in, swing that underhook, pull the trigger on the shot immediately. For me, when I get this one, I usually get him off balance pretty good. So when I dip and block, as he fights out, his head position's already kind of pushed away from me. So it makes that opening for my single much easier. So as I go underhook, I go right into my single and look to score there.
Yeah, I would say the first three things that we just went over is probably 50% or so of most underhooks. Club underhook, just punching an underhook, or using that windmill type dip motion, which we're actually going to use in some of the other ways to get to our underhooks. But let's move on to number 4. Getting to an underhook off a failed shot. I love this, especially if I have trouble getting into these hand fighting positions. So we're using a shot to build up to our underhook. If I'm trying to hand fight, and this guy's thumb blocking a lot, and I can't dig into anything, I'm going to use a shot. It doesn't have to be from the open, but a lot of times if I'm losing that hand fight, I will go from the open. I'll either hit a double or a single leg, and I'll build up to an underhook on the single leg side. So I shoot, boom, he sprawls. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crowd in. My hand's gonna go from the hamstring up to that underhook position we talked about, which is up high in the middle of the back. As you notice, my other hand is posted as well. All right, I don't want to go here because I'll get flipped over. It's pretty obvious. So I shot, I posted one hand, I came here, I start coming up, and I look for my attack at that point.
Notice as he's doing this, his left hand positioning. If he is coming up and not aware of of keeping this free, that's when guys will control and you'll lose all that momentum. So as he's coming up, he kind of has this open hand position, almost like a thumb block, so that if I do reach, he can catch. So he starts to come up. If I do reach to go grab, he's gaining that advantage there. One thing I'll say for this technique in particular, you have to be aware of what this guy can do as you come up. So if I'm low on a shot and I start coming up, that's typically when people will hit stuff like lat drops or throws. And so I am not bulldozing through them. I'm not coming up like this, standing up straight and just running into them, because you're gonna get caught with a lat drop. Go ahead and you can hit it. So if I'm here and I come up and I just run into them, you're going for a ride. So my positioning as I come up, I can come up aggressively, but when I go here, like, I'm in good solid position. I'm not draped way underneath. I'm not overextending myself. Hand goes to the back. I come up and I'm gonna start a little bit lower and then build up. And I'm not pressuring, I'm not running straight into him here. You will go for a ride. I'm typically gonna have my position here, and I'll probably try and catch this wrist in this particular one, because it's much harder for him to lat drop me if I'm controlling that wrist. So if I'm gonna come up here, shoot, he meets me with that hip, I come up, I circle here. And again, depending on his position, I can go into different tacks. I, a lot of times, add foot sweeps. And so if I come up, he might pressure into me. That's a great time to hit a foot sweep. So if I'm here, I come up, a little bit of pressure with that pocket to pocket. He pressures back into me some. I step out front, pointing my toe between his feet, and block with a foot sweep. If you don't have that in your game, now might be a time to add it. Or you can go knee pick, which is probably where I would go to next. I get caught here. I come up. I'm gonna circle pocket to pocket, getting him to step, and I'm gonna go knee pick. I can stay in front or go behind, but I'm gonna make sure that when I hit this, I don't load myself up for a lat drop. So I'm gonna catch. I like to add that trip, but you may also like to stay in front. So you might hit this, come up here. You might like to stay in front, run him down, and finish there. You know, that's personal preference depending on how you like to hit your knee pick.
Yeah, and the one thing you're gonna notice that I noticed when I shot this a lot is it puts you in a different position as well. Like, if I get an underhook the traditional way where I just maybe go club underhook or just punch it here, very difficult to go from here to here. And that's a good wrestler, to get that much of an angle on somebody. But when you shoot, they want you to have this for some reason. I think it's because they're trying to wizard and defend the shot. So what I mean is, like, if I shoot and he sprawls and wizards, he gives me this angle. So when I recover, they'll still think they're on a shot a lot of times, and they'll stay in this wizard position and kind of stay with this almost this pressure, like with the overhook. Does that make sense? So I'll end up, it's easier to wrestle from this position. But the second thing I want to touch on that Steven already said was, don't push in. Don't push in. We talked about setup in the key concepts of hand fighting, using push pulls and fakes to set your shot up. We only do that when we're in good position. So what I mean is, you just shot, this is not good position for you, right? Like, you're around the back, this isn't great position, especially if your head's down or something like that. This isn't good position. We are not looking for our shot now. We are almost like we're fixing our position, hand fighting back to a better underhook. So we don't build pressure. We're not looking to set our shot up yet. We're coming up to our feet with a little more caution, getting to our underhook position, and then ready to initiate that attack. Number 5 for underhook hand fighting techniques is punch underhook. I guess that's what I call the first one. Punch the elbow underhook. All right, pop the elbow underhook. It's not club underhook. All right, so we'll hit some reps. We'll go this way a little bit. So this can be used, especially if the person has they do really well with that elbow positioning. What I mean is, Steven talked about earlier, I guess go on this side, probably easier, talked about a person who's good with the collar tie will use their elbow positioning to block the inside fighting. Or even, we talked about the second technique was dipping the shoulder. So if I try to dip the shoulder and he's blocking the elbow, I can't dig that underhook because his elbow's not out wide enough. The elbow's out wide, I can slip the shoulder and punch in. What we can do is take our opposite hand, fingers pointed to the ceiling. I'm just punching to open that elbow up to then punch the underhook. Just punching to the side, punching in. Any thoughts with that?
Yeah, I didn't really learn this one until after college. This is not one that I did. Actually, I think Placido Santos showed me this one. So go ahead and go collar tie. You can kind of find a place for this technique if you do a lot of underhooks, but the goal here is just getting his elbow open. So I'm just getting his elbow open. I'm doing the same technique as before, but I'm adding a setup to get there. So whether I'm going, overtie here, slapping and going, I need to create the space and go underhook. I would say, like what Evan mentioned before, 50% of our underhooks are coming from those first 3 techniques. Club underhook, just fighting for underhooks, and then dipping that elbow in. But this is a great one to add in because most people won't expect it. They won't expect it. They're typically just kind of like, they feel fine because they have that inside position, and then you just kind of slap and go.
Technique number 6, wrist rolling to our underhook position. The wrist roll technique is a great technique to get off of your opponent's tie, especially a collar tie. My opponent has a collar tie on me. I'm just gonna take my thumb, I'm gonna reach it up as high up into the back of my neck as possible. So here is harder to roll. As you get up to that wrist, much easier. Even the hand becomes easier to roll it off. Once my thumb goes underneath the back of my neck, I'm going to dip my chin to my chest roll the hand off the top of my head, and then here I can just step in. Because I have inside positioning, my knuckles are on the inside, I can easily punch my underhook. You'll see people, you know, I think most time it's rolled off from the collar tie. Any other positions? I think you don't even know if you did it from the collar tie.
Maybe here.
Just kind of grabbing it.
Maybe. I've seen some guys will wrestle just like this and then step in. So that could be another option. Instead of attacking the wrist like this and climbing up, you could attack it knuckles facing in. Maybe I have wrist and inside here. But a lot of times actually if I'm going underhook, I wouldn't want wrist and armpit here. I'd want wrist and a thumb block. So that when I get here, I already have this hand in position to control. If I go wrist and inside tie, when I get here, I have to fight this hand in, and he may gain some control there. So you could definitely go from just attacking the wrist and climbing up. So his hands are here, reaching. Again, I'd probably actually reach left hand first here. Roll, thumb goes up, feet in, keeping that attack hand free in this case.
Number 7, clearing a Russian tie. So with this technique, obviously your opponent's gonna have to pull a Russian tie, but it's just taking an amazing tie for him and immediately transitioning it into an amazing tie for yourself. And with clearing a Russian tie or hand fighting off Russian tie in general, you normally are attacking the bottom or top hand. The way I'm gonna attack the bottom hand is I'm gonna take my hand with the V position, I'm gonna punch him in the wrist. The thin part of my wrist needs to be aligned with where the gap is in his finger. If the fat part is, it will not break as easily. So I'll just turn my wrist until the thin part is where the gap is. I'm gonna bend my elbow like this. So I'm punching the chest, punching the fist to my chest, and I'm gonna block or even punch at his wrist with this free hand. So bend the elbow, punch that hand here. Once I do that, we're using that windmill motion to get to our underhook position.
I would say the biggest thing with this one I would probably try to emphasize is when you do go for the underhook, I would take this as a chance to attack immediately because you're catching him by surprise. He's got a great advantage here. As I go underhook, I should immediately go into some sort of attack because I'm catching him by surprise. If I go here and then get it and wait, now he's gonna start to fight out, or at least he's more prepared. So if I do attempt this, if I'm gonna go for this, I would definitely go right into an attack, whatever that might be, single, knee pick, even, you know, maybe even a front headlock. But I would definitely use this to your advantage to go immediately into some sort of attack because he's gonna get caught off guard if you do actually get it. If you don't fully get it, like if I go here and block me from here, and I'm fighting under like this, you know, you can clear out. Just because you can do this doesn't mean it'll be there every single time. If you get it free and you start going underhook and it's not there, don't just stand up and keep wrestling here. Let's work out and get a reset on that position if we have to.
Yeah, and I'll show you one little trick I used to do. I used to force a Russian, but I would never let them get my bottom wrist. Here's what I mean. So like somebody has a Russian on me, right? They control their bottom wrist on me and their top. And we're talking about clearing that bottom one to get to underhook. Well, what I would do is I would attack what's called a baseball grip. When you attack a baseball grip, one of the common defenses to get it out of that position is pulling a Russian tie and kind of eliminates a lot of the offense. But if you notice, I have his wrist. I don't have to clear my wrist at all, and I can immediately come to the underhook position. So what you can do is you can go baseball grip, you can feed him your elbow, and then you can immediately let go, and I would attack immediately to maybe a knee pick. Technique number 8 is going to be down blocking and getting right to our underhook position. So we're gonna later talk about more in a front headlock position, and we've already kind of actually touched on that, I think, a little bit in the beginning. This is not a fully front headlock position. This is just when they drop, to go to fake maybe a high crotch, and we're just down blocking and getting right to our underhook. The nice thing about this is you can attack immediately. A lot of times with the front headlock, you have to allow the head to pop out to be able to go to your attacks, which again, we're gonna talk about it later, but this is different, all right? A lot of little differences in this. When he goes to fake for that high crotch, I'm just dropping and blocking my hand, the edge of my hand, into his forearm as I step my lead leg back. This is where I actually normally will hit this technique. He fakes, down block, step back in, and I normally go right to this knee pick. This is actually, I've hit this several times in matches. I come here, he fakes, down block, step back in, and immediately go to that attack. I guess you want to talk about that arm drape a little bit that you were doing?
Yeah. So again, if I'm wrestling him and he's gaining the advantages, so he's got, say he goes inside on both.
Yeah.
He's got collar tie, inside tie. First step, I may catch these elbows, but I'm gonna work to get some sort of defensive tie, whether it's my thumb in, my hand in, or draping this hand either into the armpit or almost even to the neck. And I would say in this case, I like to drape on his attack hand. So his attack hand, his righty, is gonna be a right hand in this case. So if my left hand stays draped in, when he pulls his hand back to shoot, my hand just kind of drops automatically. So I have that drape here, and if I have it tense, he probably won't shoot. So I might have it a little more relaxed. I'll even turn my pinky into his armpit. So as he pulls it back, my hand drops, and then I'm throwing right into whatever attack you like to do. But I think, again, I won't wrestle. I'm not gonna sit here and wrestle for 2 minutes with my hand draped inside. This is more, this guy's bringing the heat, hand fighting very, very hard, and I'm struggling to fight inside, so I'm gonna take that in the meantime while I work inside. So like if he gets this, I'm not gonna stay here for a minute. This is not an advantaged position for me, but I'll hold this so that I can fight inside and then fight back in. So in the meantime, if he fights in and I have this placed to buy me some time to fight in, and then he pulls the trigger on the shot, my hand just drops in, and I'm going right into my attack.
Number 9 is going to be the front headlock. This time the opponent might be shooting into you and you're sprawling, or you snap them down to a front headlock position, or they're trying to recover from a front headlock position and you're getting right to that underhook. So we did that somewhat quickly as far as the transition, but I think realistically in matches, you're in the front headlock for a little bit, and then you kind of make that all of a sudden motion to the underhook. I don't think I'm always gonna go necessarily snap, punch the underhook on this side. I don't know if you think kind of similarly.
Yeah.
It's normally gonna be like, they shoot on you, you boom, you catch your front headlock here, and you just see that opportunity. Now, the nice thing is, if I go underhook now, okay, I'm gonna probably try and score from the front headlock. So if I go underhook here, I'm gonna probably try and bounce him and score. But if he starts coming up to his feet, and we're still in this front headlock position, this is where I'll try to go to that leg attack. So I'll allow his head to pop out like he's trying to get his defense. I'll go underhook here. I traditionally will go for knee pick because I'm not really behind him as much, and normally they'll have that lead leg forward. So I'll go there.
Yeah.
Any ways you like to bait that?
I hit the same attack, and again, this is gonna depend on your skill in the front headlock. If you suck at a front headlock, then maybe you let the guy up a little easier and go to your underhook. Evan and I both feel pretty good. Like if I get a front headlock, I'm really trying to score. Like I'm exhausting all options, dragging him down, trying to score. It's when this guy starts to work up and gains enough advantage so I'm like, okay, maybe I can't pull him back down. Then I'm gonna transition to my underhook. And typically it will happen like, go ahead and go control the elbow. I'm pulling him down, and then he starts to gain even more. He starts coming up, keeps coming up more. I'm here, okay? If I have a good enough grip and he doesn't have good elbow control, I'm almost always gonna pull him back down. But if he has good elbow control and I know, like, if I stay here, he's gonna fight out anyway, I'm gonna use my elbow to feed his head out. I don't go underhook to a knee pick with his head trapped under my belly. I turn my elbow, my right elbow here, to feed his head, allowing his head to come up high enough so I can level change into a knee pick or an ankle pick there. And this for me is kind of a last resort. I'm gonna try and score from the underhook. But if I know the guy's gonna get out, I'm gonna use, I still have the advantage because I have the front headlock. I'm gonna use it to go to something else. Whether I go to a knee pick and score, whether I go underhook and go back down to a front headlock, totally depends on what you like to do. But it's gonna be a little more last resort. I'm holding this, he starts working out, he's working out here. I'm trying to drag him down, it's not working. Feed the head. I find that when I feed that head, I almost act as if I'm like letting him go. So when I feed the head, I pull my left shoulder back. I'm like, okay, I'm like here, and then I like ease up. Let him pop the head out, swing this, and I'm probably 90% of the time going either ankle pick or knee pick, or I'm going here, either low to the ankle or to the knee to score.
Technique number 10, using your snaps or your chops to dig to your underhook tie-up. I would say you can use this from the inside tie. You can snap from an inside tie or a collar. I think a lot of times they do it from thumb block, but snaps or clearing the tie is common way to hand fight. It's a common way to clear someone's tie is a chop, okay? So if they have a collar tie, I'll thumb block, I'll chop. If they have a thumb block, I'll thumb block, I'll chop. If they have an inside tie on here, I'll thumb block, I'll chop. Okay, I would say the hardest one would probably be inside tie. Collar tie sometimes is difficult to do, but you need to extend them, get their arm extended, because if their arm's bent, you can't snap through a bent arm. You will pass that off normally. Extend their arm with your own thumb blocks, then your fingers turn into your opponent. You slide down the arm as low as possible till you get to the wrist, because if you snap the elbow, it will just kind of almost bend it back in again. So you go all the way down, you snap it off, and then you can immediately dig into that underhook position.
Yeah, I do these a lot, and I think clearing these work well no matter what type of control you're trying to get to. But I don't, another thing that will help you a lot with clearing these is not waiting. So go ahead and get inside, whatever it is. Don't sit here for 10 seconds. Push, and then go, because he'll usually either start working back in to gain advantage or pulling the trigger on the shot. So when he wins the hand fighting, he wins in, push, pause, bang, and then clear. You can even probably push and clear at the same time, but I typically will push, so I'm getting him fully extended, clear, I can dig an underhook. I do a lot of snaps off of this, so I do a lot of times, go ahead and go even double inside, doesn't matter. I'll push, clear here, or a lot of times from a collar tie, I'll push, and I'll do a hard snap. And again, you could go into your underhook from there, but I'm gonna try and score the front headlock.
Yeah, and I think two ways this will kind of happen too, is when you snap, you're either gonna, I would say this first one happens more than often. You snap, they go to tie up again, you underhook. Or you're kind of snapping and trying to dig right in. I would say the first one is probably what happens more. You're kind of just snapping these things off, and then you end up punching into an underhook as they go to regain their tie up. All right, now, since we stayed to the end, I got 4 bonus ones for you guys. First one is going to be kind of when you're cutting an opponent or they're just on their knees. So your opponent's down, you might have your hands on them. A lot of times, well, actually I'll go from the cutting. So I put my hand in his head, I'm cutting my opponent. A lot of times they'll reach an arm up to, grab your shoulder or get on something, especially if you're pushing him down hard. That allows me the opportunity to go underhook here. Again, I can stand up or do, or keep him down the mat. I'll actually show you one thing, go down real quick. This, maybe I can find the match, but I think it was Tony Ramos from Iowa. He's losing his match. He comes out to cut the person, stay on your knee and reach this hand up, whatever, and he goes straight to his DJ.
Check out these 2 live examples of Yazdani and Tony Ramos hitting this technique. Here, Yazdani snaps his opponent to the mat, and as his opponent reaches up, he goes right to the underhook and ends up going and finishing his takedown. In the next example, Tony Ramos gets shot on. As his opponent reaches up to recover, Tony Ramos hits that underhook and drives him over to his back to get the pin.
So, great opportunity there. Now, going to another variation, very, very similar, is cutting somebody to an over-underhook position. This was explained by Trent Hidley, because this is what he likes to do, is get to an over-underhook position. He has his own video showing him doing this. I'll put, you can see the video in a second of an example. But in general, when I cut somebody, you gotta stay on the person. And the idea is you get to your tie-up. So whether you like whatever type you like, when I go to cut the person, I am getting to the type I like. For Trent Hidley, he goes to the over-under. So he literally forces this before the guy stands up and then goes immediately right to his attacks. If I liked, go down one more time, if I liked an inside tie, it'd be the same thing. When I cut them, I already grabbed the inside tie, so when he comes up, I'm ready to go. So use that just as a general concept of when you cut someone, you do not let them go and get a fresh restart. You get to your tie-up. You can even dig to that over-under, like that one example. You want to show the other two?
Yep. I got two more I like to do. One of them is going to be from bottom. So the way I earn my escape, I do an inside leg stand-up or a quad pod. So I rotate, I start to push back up, and I get to this position, especially when I have it sealed off. And even got to get behind me a little more. It's sealed off here. I turn into him and I start to dip my shoulder for an underhook position. So I'm turning in, dip my shoulder, come up with an underhook. In that case, I'll probably go to a knee pick. A lot of times when you go underhook, the guy will cut you too. So if I go here, I start rotating up. I'm here, I'm dipping for that underhook. A lot of guys will just back out there because they sense the danger. But when we're in this position, I dip my shoulder almost to like where it's connected to his armpit, and then I'm swinging for my underhook. And this one, I probably am not gonna stand straight up right away. I may use this because I'm kind of gaining an advantage by surprise. I'm going underhook. I'm probably gonna stay a little bit lower and run that knee pick and look to score there.
Here's an example of me going right to the underhook after getting my escape. Peel the wrist free, get to my underhook.
The second one is going to be similar to the palm slap. So we had this one earlier where we slap with the palm and go underhook. I can also use my overtie, so I have this hand draped over, to pull outside. I pull outside at the elbow, feed that underhook. So an example, he's collar tie, I'm wrestling here, here. Again, going into score. So this one's a little sneaky, but you can add this in. I'm draped, pull the elbow open, dip the shoulder, catch that underhook.
You do it with your arm drop down too. Yeah. So, I think that might have been longer than the hand fighting video. If you're staying till the end, then you definitely need to hop inside my free academy. Link is in the description, because you all must be an awesome fan to be watching hour-and-a-half long instructionals. But hope to see you guys inside the community. Inside the community, you can even suggest new videos. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next instructional.